The four-day truce between Israel and Hamas has been extended for another 2 days. That's according to the Qatari Foreign Ministry. Qatar is one of several countries mediating between Israel and Hamas to secure the release of hostages taken in the Hamas terror attacks of the 7th of October. Several groups of hostages have been exchanged for Palestinian prisoners in recent days. The release of hostages by Hamas on Sunday means that 39 Israeli women and children have now been freed under the truce deal. Hamas agreed to hand over 50 hostages in total during the four-day truce. Under separate agreements, Hamas has freed another 19 during the truce, most of them Thai citizens who were working in Israel and abducted during the Hamas attack. Israel says more than 240 people were seized by Palestinian militants on October the 7th. At least 180 are still being held in Gaza. Those already released have been reuniting with friends and families. The truce between Israel and Hamas has given Gazans some respite from the fighting and bombardment. We hear now from one extended family that made its way to a Gazan beach for a visit that was all too brief.
A chance to breathe without the smoke and stench of war. There is space at this beach for the Al Sultan family, so different from their space at a facility for displaced Gazans. For a brief moment in time, children can play, the fear of violence set aside. But not for their parents, reflecting on who and what has been lost since the October 7th Hamas terror attacks on Israel that spurred massive Israeli retaliation.
We came to the beach to take a breather and to change the depressing and polluted environment we're in. People come to the beach to relax, to swim, for their children to have fun, take food with them. But we're so depressed. We're on the beach, but we want to cry.
One family member, though, has finally gotten a chance to fish during the truce and hopes he can keep the clan fed for longer. The uncertainty goes well beyond the end of the truce. The Al Sultan family, like so many on this bit of Gazan beach, don't know if they have homes to which they can return when the fighting truly ends.
Let's pick this up with our Middle East analyst, Shani Razanis. Welcome back to the studio, Shani. So fill us in. What else do we know about this extension?
Well, it was the formula that was agreed upon, and it is happening. We know that the Americans have also confirmed that. We have an official statement from the White House. We know Biden was speaking to the Qataris himself, the Prime Minister of Qatar, in order to ensure this extension. So it's going to be another 48 hours of ceasefire, more trucks, more aid coming into Gaza Strip. More Israeli hostages released, 20 of them in total. And in exchange, Israel will release 60 prisoners, Palestinian prisoners, kept in Israeli prisons.
All right. And both parties, as we've been hearing all day, both parties seem to be open to this extension in one way or another. So why has it taken so long?
Well, first and foremost, there's a lot of suspicion, a lot of hostility, a lot of loathing between the sides. And nobody wants to be too obvious. You know, nobody wants to seem too eager. Everybody's trying to toughen up their positions. But also there's always, you know, on the Israeli side, they feel like Hamas is trying to always play games and sort of manipulate them. You know, today there's been a bit of a mix-up, not more than a bit of a mix-up with the names. We've seen that the second day have almost brought to the collapse of the deal.
So with the names, this is the names of the hostages to be
released today, correct. I mean, Hamas keeps claiming it doesn't have access to all of those held in Gaza, that some of them are held by other organizations in Gaza, mostly the Islamic Jihad. Some of them are also held, we know, by families, by clans that are, you know, strong clans in Gaza. So Hamas is claiming it doesn't really have control over all of them. It did manage to say, now it says that it managed to get a hand over at least 20 more of those children and mothers. This is also the category we're talking about. There's many people held in Gaza. There's a difference to who we're talking about. Soldiers, men, they're not part of those deals because they're also not part of the prisoners exchange. It seems like now it's finally Hamas is willing to bring 20 more of those children and their mothers. And so Israel, of course, is interested in releasing as many hostages as possible. And again, we always need to be very careful. Everything here is so fragile and everything can collapse at any moment. But hopes are that this extension is going to be agreed upon very, very soon.
And 20 more because 10 each day on this
Correct.
2-day extension. So it's hostages plus aid coming in. And are we looking at the same 3-to-1 Palestinians for Israelis?
Correct, and this is the framework that was worked on already when this deal started. But nobody wanted to give it too long, again, because we're talking about the hostility, the deep hostility between the two sides, everybody said, okay, let's take it one day at a time, let's see where it takes us. Even after this extension, there will be still 23 more children and mothers left and women left in Gaza. So good chances we will try to see both Hamas and Israel going for another extension to bring those 23 out. The problem will start once we start negotiating, the sides start negotiating the next category of hostages, mainly the men, the soldiers. Hamas sees a soldier, anybody who's ever served in the military forces, even if they're 70 years old and they have not, they're out of active duty for 50 years. So that would be a different category that will require far more rigorous negotiations, and it's going to have to work out some kind of different framework.
And will those talks already have started? Because, you don't have to be a genius to see that this is a predictable process.
Yeah. Correct. We know the Americans are pushing there. We know all sides kind of want to talk about it. Israel claims it's adamant to go back into the offensive. They want to work through the military options they have because they feel...
And they've been quite clear, haven't they? We've heard from the military spokesman, when this is over, we will start the bombing campaign
Israel
again.
works under the premise that it's only the heavy pressure that they've put on Hamas in the bombardments in Gaza so far that have brought Hamas to agree to the deal so far. And they want to make sure that they get better deals, better conditions to release the rest of the hostages, and feel that the only way to get that is through ground maneuvering, is through military operation in the southern part of the Gaza Strip.
Right. What has the public response been so far to this series of releases?
Well, these are days of, Israel's national mood is so... It's like a never-ending roller coaster. With every delay, everybody's so taking it so emotionally. These hostages, the campaign for their release, have become nationally wide, so popular. People take it personally, even those who are not in direct contact with the hostages. There's, in general, a support for extending the truce in order to bring more of them home. But there's also a bit of a concern that the international pressure will be so big that Israel will be forced to stop fighting. And this is a big fear in Israel. OK, thank you for that. For now, DW Middle East analyst Shani Razanis. Thank you so much.
For more, we're joined now by journalist Sami Sokol in Jerusalem. Sami, the truce has been extended. What happens next?
So the truce will enter now a phase of 2 days in which Hamas will be releasing along these 2 days 20 prisoners. Again, we're talking about both women and children. This time they will have to get them from various organizations, families, and so forth who are holding them. At the same time, Israel will be releasing prisoners that are held in Israeli prisons, again, belonging to the same category of both women and children. And more trucks will be coming into the Gaza Strip, especially to the north, bringing aid.
Sami, this deal came through very last minute. Why has it been so challenging to extend the agreement?
Well, what Hamas is saying that they had difficulties with finding some of these hostages because they're not held in the hands of Hamas. The groups that we've seen being released so far were held by Hamas. In fact, one of the leaders of Hamas in Gaza met them and spoke to them in Hebrew. The ones that are going to be released in the coming days, many of them are being held by other factions. There was also disagreements in terms of the trucks coming up to the north of the Gaza Strip, and also in terms of the Palestinians being released. But after all, both the Qataris and the Egyptians were pushing hard to make this happen.
Could this truce eventually lead to a permanent ceasefire?
Yeah, well, if we judge the words of Khalil al-Hayya, one of the Hamas leaders who was interviewed today on Al Jazeera, he said that his organization would like to extend this truce and that he would like to have other categories being released. That means not only women and children, but of course, then we're talking about a different kind of ratio. It is expected that Hamas will be demanding a higher number of Palestinian prisoners to be released. We know that Qatar, Egypt, very much would like to extend this ceasefire. At the same time, Israel has said that it wants to go back to its military campaign. And the question is, how will it be able to continue with its campaign when 80% of Gazans have already been displaced, according to UNRWA figures? How will they be able to wage this campaign when they say they want to topple Hamas in these kinds of conditions?
That was Sami Sokol in Jerusalem. Thanks. Germany says it will provide millions of euros to help rebuild the Israeli communities destroyed by the October 7th Hamas terror attacks. German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier made the announcement during a visit to Israel's kibbutz Be'eri, just a few kilometers from Gaza, which was one of those targeted.
A difficult trip, but a necessary one. This is how German President Steinmeier described his visit to Israel. A trip which left him searching for words when he visited a kibbutz destroyed by Hamas terrorists on October the 7th.
The ruins behind us, they are the silent witness of what had happened here. And it's not easy to find the words to describe what we heard from those who have the knowledge and those who were witnessing the deeds, the murders, the killings, the rapes of the Hamas here on the 7th of October.
But Steinmeier, the country's head of state, also wanted to show Germany's support with more than words. He said the parliament in Berlin, the Bundestag, would provide financial assistance worth 7 million euros next year to help rebuild the kibbutz. Some of the kibbutz residents showed their gratitude for Germany's solidarity.
And also as a vote of confidence in our ability to rebuild our lives, giving us something to dream of and to look forward to, so we can have hope that we will have a future and it will be a good future.
Steinmeier, as well as other German officials, have shown their steadfast political support for Israel in the war. At the same time, Steinmeier stressed a long-term solution must also include more future prospects for the Palestinians. The German president is set to continue his Middle East tour with a short visit to Oman and Qatar.